Hey, everybody, and welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. This is Katie Weaver, and I'm here with my co anchor and partner in crime and sister, Kristi Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey, everybody. So excited
Huh.
to be here with
Yeah,
another, I don't know, pretty special story we're telling tonight.
I love this story a lot. I've been way down the rabbit hole. Yeah, but before we get into it, how are you? How's it going?
I'm really good, really good. Almost clear of the coronavirus. That's always a nice thing. And I'll tell you my big win for today. And any of you that are diabetic or keto are going to understand this. But I was in the store and I discovered if you don't know what Lily's chocolate is, go look it
Mm,
up because Lily's is stevia and erythritol sweetened chocolate. They have revolutionized the lives of diabetics and keto people.
hmm.
They have 3 kinds of holiday chocolate chips this year.
That is so cool.
I bought them all. So, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I was super excited about it. I immediately texted Katie and our sister Kara
Hmm.
pictures. Like, you better get to Walmart before these are gone. Because you just don't know
Yeah.
when you can't eat any of the mainstream stuff, when holiday things come around, it's a real bummer because you can't
Hmm.
get stuff that you like or that you're used to or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's exactly how, it's been feeling. And then I discovered these holiday like white chocolate peppermint and butterscotch, which you could not get sugar-free butterscotch chocolate chips
Hmm.
anywhere. And then
Ever.
a chocolate caramel
Well, I'm so
salted caramel.
excited. My Walmart does not carry Lily's, so I'm gonna have to come down to yours because
Oh, yeah.
they have a different brand of sugar-free chocolate chips, and they're
Oof,
okay, but they don't
they're
melt like
not good.
Lily's do.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lily's melts appropriately,
Yes.
and this other brand, no. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, very good. How
Yeah.
exciting.
So that was my win for the day.
I love it. I actually I took myself to town, which only, this is ridiculous, but I never drive. And it's not that I can't drive and I have a nice car, but I just, if anyone else is with me that even has a learner's permit, I'm definitely going to make them drive. I just don't like to. And so, my kids are constantly like, yeah, she doesn't drive. And I'm like, I freaking drive. Yes, I do.
Not when
So
you're with them, though.
today, Right? So today I got in my car and took myself to town. That's right.
Well, good job.
I went to the vet to get seizure medicine for Skippy,
Oh, good job.
and so exciting. So at the vet, it was so sweet. As I was walking out, this lady was walking in and she had a laundry basket with a towel over it, and you could just see under it these little tiny, uh, looked like chocolate lab puppies, little brown
Oh,
puppies, tiny. And as I got to the car, she parked next to me, and Mama was sitting in the front seat. So
oh,
she had ridden clear to the vet, and they left her and took the babies in, probably for dew claws. They're about that age. Anyway, my mom was sitting in the car just watching her puppies go into the vet, and she was just
oh,
looking real concerned. It was really sweet. Poor
oh.
thing. I hope they were super quick in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was very nice. And then I had to go to the post office. And I went to the post office and the parking lot was packed. And I'm like, oh God, no.
Mhm.
COVID is so bad in my town. I'm like, I'm not standing around all these people. So I thought I'll go to the pharmacy and come back. So I went to the pharmacy and I came back, and the parking lot was more packed than when I left the first time.
Oh, no.
So then I thought I'm just going to sit in my car and drink coffee for a few minutes and let this line go down. Yeah, no. It was clear out the door, getting longer and longer. And finally, I'm like, okay, stupid, you have to get out of the car. You're going to have to stand in that line, which I did. And it moved faster than I was, it wasn't horrible. But anyway, yeah, I just kept putting it off. I thought you're going to sit here till 5 o'clock and the post office will be closed. And that'll have wasted your
And
whole
you will
life.
never have gone in.
I've been waiting for the line to go down.
That's funny.
Anyway, 1st of December and the post office looks like that. So
Ugh,
that's a big
yeah.
yikes. Yeah.
Never a fun place in December. Never, ever.
No. So someone needs to start printing labels at home and not go in there anymore.
Right?
That's my thought. Yeah.
I think you're correct. Hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, so yeah, it's been just a pretty good day here. Just, doing basic things. I
Nice.
discovered that McDonald's has French vanilla latte, a sugar-free French vanilla latte that
Ooh,
really
nice.
doesn't suck at all. Yeah,
Nice, nice.
I know. So look at this girl. She took herself to town. She got a latte,
Drove her own
doing the
car.
regular
I'm
thing.
impressed. I am impressed.
Drove my very own car. I know. It's crazy. Anyway, our case today was suggested by a listener. So thank you, Erica, for that. I love this case. I can't quit. I have studied it until we're going to do our very best.
Ugh.
This is a very confusing case.
Also, we are Americans and
Mhm.
we know nothing about British
Monarchy.
monarchy.
And we're doing our best
a
to
long time
learn.
ago. So
Mhm. This is what some people deem the original cold case, one of the oldest cold cases that we know of. This
Yeah.
case purportedly happened somewhere around the summer of 1483. So this case is 500 years or more in the making.
whew,
And
definitely
yeah,
the oldest case we've ever done.
and it is full of all of the components you would want in a case.
It totally is, yeah.
Mhm.
And then
Deceit,
some.
murder, intrigue,
Mm-hmm.
marrying one's sister, things like that. I don't know.
Marrying
You know?
Lots
Yeah.
of controversy.
Yes. Mhm. So we're going to start in the before in a that whole like 50 years leading up to this time was a period in time that was known as the War of the Roses.
Okay.
Okay. And the War of the Roses was really one family that had split into a couple of different factions that believed they had claim to the throne in England,
Yeah.
the British throne. And they basically were doing serious battle with each other. I mean, it was like the equivalent of the Civil War in the United States. You had family members, brothers against brothers, cousins against cousins. It was really ugly. It was actually just a really dangerous and pretty shitty time in English history because it was so dangerous. And anyone who had a legitimate claim to the throne had a serious target on their back because these folks were really going to stop at nothing to be able to be the ones in charge. So, and power had kind of gone back and forth and back and forth. And so we find a time where, and I'm going to work really hard to get all of the names correct because this is really challenging. Okay. So we get to a time where Edward IV is the king and his wife is Elizabeth Woodville. And Edward IV had two sons, Edward V and Richard, Duke of York. And these sons were, at the time, they were about 12 and 10 or 12 and 9, depending on what you read. Mm-hmm. And Edward IV died unexpectedly. He hadn't been the king for very long, and he died unexpectedly. Well, his brother, Richard of Gloucester. Uh-huh. He was then the guardian of these boys and basically had been left in the will by the king as the protector of England. And he was supposed to be the guardian and protector of these children. Mm-hmm. Well, he and some of the other dignitaries felt like 12 years old was too young to assume the throne. So they were working out what was going to happen to with the kingship in the meantime. Mm-hmm. Well, the queen felt like, no, this is his birthright, and he absolutely will be taking the throne. Mm-hmm. And so she had arranged for a coronation for Edward V, and that was coming right up. While in the meantime, the Uncle Richard, and again, a lot of the history here was written about 100 years later. Yeah. By Shakespeare and a couple of other people. And they really
right. Yeah. Shakespeare. Yeah.
Yeah. They really villainize Richard. And there's not a lot of there's a fair amount of evidence. When he was a duke, he was actually beloved and, was considered to be a very fair and even-minded ruler that was really good to people. And so, there's some thought here that perhaps his memory was really tainted by the Tudors who came after him, that they wanted to, that took over the throne after him, these were their attempts because, what's the old adage that history is written by the winners,
Yes. Yeah.
So everything we know, we kind of are taking with a grain of salt. But
and you got to remember that Shakespeare just wrote plays. He wasn't a historian, I mean, the stories that King Richard III, the play that he wrote kind of has been taught as history, but there's no indication that he actually wrote it as history. We just sort of use that as, this is what happened then. But he also didn't live anywhere near the time that Richard III did. So who the hell knows?
He and Sir Thomas More both wrote quite a bit about him. And again, they were friends of Tudors. And there's some suspicion there that really what was said about him was quite unfair. But anyway, it's all good. But so with all of that being said, right before our young king was supposed to be, have a coronation for him, like the day before or within a couple of days before, something happened that cast doubt on his claim to the throne.
Yes.
What it was is a document known as Titulus Regius. So what Titulus Regius basically says is that it tracks whether or not you have a legit claim to the throne. Here's what he said. What Richard III claimed was that there was a pre-contract for his brother to marry someone else. He didn't end up marrying that person. He married Elizabeth Woodville. But because he had a contract of marriage with Eleanor Talbot, that nullified the marriage between Elizabeth Woodville and Edward IV. And so the children then were declared bastards and did not have a right to the throne.
Right.
And that happened like literally within days of the coronation.
Right. Because it was to stop the coronation.
Some history says it happened the day before the coronation. Some history says, within a few days. But at any rate, that's what happened. Well, in the meantime, when their dad died, these two princes were moved to the Tower of London to be kept safe. So they were living in chambers in the Tower of London where they were being cared for by, this gets even more confusing, but I'm going to try. They were being cared for by Margaret Beaufort.
Beaufort, I think.
Oh, Beaufort. Yeah, Beaufort. Beaufort, yes. And her husband was the caretaker of the tower at the time. So that's who was taking care of these boys. Unfortunately, she also had some motive to hurt these boys because her son also had a potential claim to the throne. So there's a lot of issues here. So anyway, after Titulus Regius is declared and the boys are declared bastards, basically Richard assumes himself as the king. He basically places himself on the throne with the help of some other dignitaries that make it so. So he becomes the king. And people aren't very happy about it. There's a lot of rumors about, was that correct? And should that have happened? And was that fair? But it's what happened. So that year, September of that year, is the last time that anyone could recall seeing those two boys. They just disappeared. No one saw them again.
You think royal children would not just poof into thin air,
Well, particularly because even though they were declared bastards of the throne, Richard was still their legal guardian.
Right.
He was still in charge of them per se, but they just vanished. And so rumors started flying that he had killed these children. And yeah, some people felt like, why would he do that? Because of Titulus Regis, he had claim to the throne anyway. There was no reason to harm these kids. But at any rate, they did disappear. Now, he was only king for 2 years.
Right.
And 2 years later, he was defeated in a battle by
Right.
Henry the Seventh. By Henry the Seventh.
Henry VII. Yep.
And Henry the Seventh, in order to take his wife, so track me here, his wife was Elizabeth of York, who happens to be the daughter of Elizabeth Woodville. Elizabeth Woodville being the mother of these boys.
Right.
Okay. It's all very intertwined. But in order for him to be able to marry her and not be bound up by this Titulus Regis nonsense, he abolishes it. He abolishes the whole thing. He has every copy of the document that can be located destroyed, and there is no more Titulus Regis. So, if the boys were still alive, he and his mother, Margaret Beaufort, would have every reason to also want to eliminate these children. It's like these kids had no chance. They had such a target on their backs.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially because there were 2 of them, like you have 2 male heirs to the throne, like you've got the older one and then you have a backup, like that's, it was always a big deal at the time that this was all going on to have a male heir, and they had 2.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we have all of this that has happened. And again, the boys haven't been seen for 2 years. Nobody knows where they are or what's happened to them. There are rumors that they had been separated and taken out to the country to live with various dukes and their families rather than keep them in the Tower of London. But there's no evidence of that whatsoever.
No, nothing.
It's just a rumor. Then later on, Sir Thomas More writes that the boys were suffocated, that they had been suffocated and killed by 2 people named Sir James Tyrrell and John Dighton. 3 men, and Miles Forrest.
Yeah.
Supposedly, Tyrrell confessed to the crime in 1502 when he was under sentence of death for treason for something else. He claimed that he and these other accomplices did kill the princes and that they were under the orders of Richard III.
But he was being tortured at the time that he made that claim. So again, here we are with who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't really take that at its word, because he was being tortured when he said that.
Yes. So fast forward now to 1674. And in 1674, some excavation was happening in the Tower of London.
Yeah.
And underneath a staircase is found the skeletons of what appear to be 2 children. Nobody knows who they are. Obviously, they have their suspicions. Those skeletons are taken and they are interred at Windsor. And they don't do anything with them for 300 years. In 1933, some royal historians and scientists are allowed to examine the bones. And what they determined from their examination, and again, this is 1933, so they didn't have, nearly the tech we have, but they had, they had some tech. Whatever tech, they didn't, but they had their, they had their scientific process.
They had been studying bones and were, doing some things like that.
One of the bones had dark spots that they felt like indicated that this person had indeed been suffocated. They also determined by the size of the bones that they were certainly children. So that's pretty much what they got from it.
They didn't even identify if they were male or female, unfortunately.
No, they weren't able to identify if they were male or female. The problem with it, and this was carried out by two gentlemen, Mr. Tannery and Professor Wright. The problem is that other experts feel like they were setting out to prove that these were the boys, and basically their process was flawed from the beginning because that was their goal, was to just say, yes, these are the boys.
So they had
they did
confirmation bias on it. Okay.
They even in their report had claimed that these two children, these people, these bodies probably died in 1674. Well, or no, I'm sorry, it's not 1674. That's when they were found.
1483.
They probably died, in 1483. And
how would they have known?
They wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. No, they didn't have carbon dating or anything, so they didn't have any way to know that.
Yeah. So there's kind of an issue there. But so now fast forward to 2019. And in 2019, there's been a really interesting turn of events. There is a group, and this group is called Revealing Richard III. Mm-hmm. And Revealing Richard III is a group of scientists and researchers that were looking for the remains of Richard III. And through using a bunch of historical texts and a whole bunch of research, they determined that Richard III was buried in England under a car park, and actually were able to dig there and exhume his remains and prove his remains through, what have we been talking about?
Familial DNA.
Yeah, for the win again.
How cool is that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So cool. So that happened. And of course, now he's been interred correctly. And, but they knew that's who he was, and they've proved it. He actually has direct blood relatives in Canada.
Yeah.
So that same group came back to the Queen and said, or, to the English government and said, we would like to re-examine the bones. We would like to do DNA. We'd like to do carbon dating. We'd like to get a sense of, see what we can figure out about these bones. And the Queen said no.
Yeah.
And everyone was so excited to take a look at these bones and apply their process and do the work. And she said no. And it really stirred people up in the scientific community and the historical community. They felt like maybe she was
Tudor cover-up.
Right? Is she covering
500 years in the making?
Right? What is she trying to hide? Like, why is she doing this? So then there was a statement that was made in about a month ago, 2 months ago. She has repeatedly denied forensic access to these bones. And here's the reason why, according to her peeps. Okay. So according to her people, hold on, let me get to it. Ended up with an article with way more pictures and stuff than I needed.
Oh,
okay. Part of the problem, they're saying, is that the bones, the carbon dating only is good for give or take 50 years. And so carbon dating the bones, even if they carbon dated them back to the 14-ish, 15-ish hundreds, they couldn't carbon date them clear to the date. They couldn't. They also couldn't really say for certain how these people died. And so that too, this is what they're saying.
Though? Who is they, though? This is a lot of assumption being made. And I wonder who wrote this statement versus these forensic investigators that are doing this work, because I wonder if any of that's actually true.
The Home Secretary, Michael Howard.
Okay.
He's the one that is saying this. So The reasoning is that several historians claimed carbon dating a sample from the late 15th century would only be able to show the time of death within plus or minus 50 years. And Richard only occupied the throne for 2 years, between 1483 and 1485, before being defeated. It could not, therefore, differentiate between Henry III or Henry V, or another being the guilty party, or Henry VII, sorry, being the guilty party.
But they could still potentially use DNA to determine if these actually were these kids or not. I mean, they could still identify if there's anything left DNA-wise, but if there was for Richard III, then I would think there might be for these bodies too. I mean, It just seems suspicious. Like, these 500-year-old bones. Like, why not say, go for shit? Do your thing,
right?
You know?
Let's do it. Well, that's exactly why they don't want to, actually. Part of it is that in order to, if they can get some, DNA, they would have to have it something to compare it to, which also means that they feel like then these researchers would ask to open other tombs in the abbey in order to track the DNA. They'd have to, perhaps look at the DNA of their mother or their father. So they feel like this is a kind of a barrel of monkeys, because if they, excuse a very probably American phrase, but, that if they open, if they allow this, then they're going to want to find some DNA that helps link these kids or the bones to family members. So they would then be asking to open other tombs, and they don't really want to do that. And then
going to start telling the family secrets.
Yep.
I mean, you think about what familial DNA has already done, letting people know they're not actually related to their family. Like that case we did a while back with a kid that was kidnapped, and family line is such a huge thing in monarchy that you might find out that nobody's where they should be. I mean, I think you're pretty likely to find out that a lot of people aren't who they think they are. I can kind of see that, but I also don't understand, why wouldn't you just want to know the truth, Yeah.
Basically, their reasoning, officially is that it wouldn't prove enough or accomplish enough to make it worth it. Also, if the bones are proven to be the children's, then okay, they would put them back in Sir Christopher Wren's urn. That's where they are currently. That's where they'd go back to. If they weren't, then what do they do with them? Because then we don't know who they are. It's like why? I mean, why not?
He does protest too much, I think.
Yeah. Why not?
To use a little Shakespeare, considering. I do. Yeah, it seems.
I liked it. It was a nice touch.
Thank you. It just seems suspicious to me. Like, what's wrong with knowing the truth? But obviously, it's not the case so much now, but in the past, all these monarchies of all of these countries over there in Europe, and there was a lot of lying and cheating and spouse swapping, and who knows who people really were or who they're really related to, and maybe it would affect the Tudor line, and then they shouldn't have been in. Shouldn't be the royalty in England now. I don't know. I mean, how far back?
Are we saving our own asses here?
Yeah. So I it does kind of seem like that. Like that's the worry is what if this unearths something that is like, hey, the queen is actually not actually the queen,
Right.
I mean, does anyone care at this point? I don't know. I mean, I'm an American. No. I don't really understand this stuff. Like, we didn't grow up with monarchy, and so it's different. I know for the Brits, this is a big deal, way bigger deal than we would understand.
Yeah. So please comment and let us know.
Yeah, you seriously do.
Because what you think about this.
We're trying to tell this story the best that we can without sounding like complete idiots. But we know that we didn't grow up with this kind of history in our country. And so there are things that I don't really understand that I'm like, it's 500 years ago. Well, and in truth, why not
all of our ancestry? Yeah. All of our ancestry is English. And yeah. We are nearly 100% English and Scottish and Irish with a teeny bit of German ancestry. But yeah, I mean, this is our ancestry. It is our heritage. Yeah, but we just didn't grow up long removed from it. Yeah. So, but that's the basic gist of the story. So there were people throughout the years, over the next 20 or so, 30 or so years, who did step forward and try to claim that they were one or the other of the boys. Again, there was no way to prove that or disprove that. And they were basically just ignored and shut down. And so nothing really
And it
ever
would be
came from
convenient
it.
to do that because then you
Right.
do something, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah. So of course it would be easy to step up and make that claim. And, if you have enough people that support you and believe you, you could potentially overthrow the monarchy, but nobody gave them that much support. So
right.
that's the story. So the questions really are, did Henry III did Richard III or one of his agents kill the boys? Did Margaret and her husband kill the boys? Did Henry VII kill the boys? Did the boys get killed in the tower? Are those their bones? Or is this a complete coincidence? What do you think? What's your take?
Okay, I'm just going to go for it. My sense is that it is the bones, that it is, in fact, the kids, that they were smothered. I don't think it was Richard III. I think it was Margaret Beaufort. I think it was Margaret Beaufort. I think that she had the most access. I feel like she had a lot of plans for her son, and he ultimately did end up being the king. And that she was thinking way ahead on his behalf. I feel like it was her. I think Richard III got a bad rap. I don't think that he had any designs to do that. I feel like he circumvented the whole thing a different way that wouldn't involve hurting his nephews, because I don't think he actually wanted to. My sense of him is that he was not a murderous whatever, but I do think that Margaret definitely wanted to see her family get up there into the throne, and that she knew long term that those boys were always going to be in the way of her son. And I feel like that it was her. And I feel like she may have, enlisted the help of some other people to actually physically do it. But yeah, I mean, I do. That's absolutely who I think did it.
I agree entirely. That's my sense of it too. One thing I didn't mention is that the way that Henry took the throne was by defeating Richard in battle.
Right.
He killed him.
Yeah, he did.
And that's how he took over. And so his claim to the throne was quite shaky because he did it through defeat rather than through, birthright. And so it does feel like something that could have been, arranged over those
kind
2
of
years.
Orchestrated. Yeah. A lot of plotting, a lot of planning. This feels very Game of Thrones-ish to me, like there was lots of planning, like long-term, eventually this is going to put my family in power kind of thing. I truly feel like that's exactly what happened. And that those kids were killed at that time when no one saw them anymore, that they were killed then. And that's where they've been this whole time.
Very sad that their mother, wasn't their guardian. Probably couldn't have been, didn't have those children in her custody, which of course, no, because they belonged to the monarchy, basically.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I'm sure she always wondered and maybe didn't even dare ask questions, and then of course, with Titulus Regulus there for a couple of years, she was probably really
she was then, basically I don't even know what the right word is, because her marriage was
probably
nullified.
And
she had been the wife of the queen of the king, oh gosh.
She was the queen, and then that not only does her husband die, but her marriage is declared nullified. But then her daughter becomes the next queen. And so she also then regains a better footing, I'm sure, in society. But it's a very tangled web, without a doubt. So we have done our level best to make sure that the facts that we presented were accurate and also understandable. I feel like I need to have one of those boards with the strings and the pins and
Yes, definitely.
But now you can see why this was decided to be, or has been called, the first cold case, or one of the most oldest and famous cold cases, because
Yeah,
it is.
it
So
is. Yeah.
I thought this was a really fun one to cover, considering how old it is and all of the twists
Mhm.
and turns. So
And
there
feel
you
free to
have it.
correct us in the comments. Do it
Oh
kindly,
yeah.
please.
Oh
We do
yeah.
not intend mistakes. We're a little out of our league on this one. But
Yes.
yeah,
This
I
was
really
500 years of
truly,
history. Yep. Honed down into a 40-minute podcast. So
yes.
I have studied extensively, however, and so I'm hoping that I think we're very close.
I
Very
have
close.
read and read and read and just sort of got myself turned around in circles, man. It is so much to keep track of.
It is.
And to
It is.
understand like all the titles and what they mean and how that all of
Mhm.
the progression of that. Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, this was the dumbed down version for sure.
Yeah, definitely. This was the Idaho version.
Mhm. But we got the gist of it, and I think that
I still am confident with the outcome, though. I'm confident
oh, me too.
with the
Mhm.
answer. I really feel like I don't have any doubt
Mhm.
that that's what happened and that that's who killed them and that
Mhm.
was the plan,
Mhm.
was just moving people out of the way to give her son an opportunity. And he took it and he became the king.
Well, all of the steps taken to delegitimize Richard III are really interesting. One of the things that is said about him by Moore and by Shakespeare was that he had some kind of physical deformity,
Oh, right.
like a hunchback or something.
Mm-hmm.
And historians say there's absolutely no proof to support that whatsoever.
Well, and
But
now
it
they
was
have
like,
his bones. They would know.
right. And basically, what they've done is just they were looking for various ways. And apparently, having a physical deformity would make him even more of a bad guy or undesirable,
Well,
you
yeah,
know.
it would, particularly in the monarchy, because that was a real thing because
Mhm.
of intermarrying. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I think that was a way to really delegitimize somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, yeah. So, there you have it. So, uh, yeah, that's it. So, of course, we will be back Wednesday night this week with a case update live stream on
Mhm,
Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Pacific, or 8 p.m. Mountain, sorry.
mhm.
And then on Thursday night, we'll be back with the Psychic Hour, also at 8 p.m. Mountain. So both of those are live streams. We'd love it if you guys come and hang out in the live and chat with us. It's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
And go check out our website. You'll get more information about us there. That is truecrimeparanormalpodcast.com. You can suggest cases there. You can join our, uh,
Mailing
help me
list,
say
our
it again.
email list, our
Oh,
email
yeah,
list.
our email list. No, that's not what I was thinking of. Our Patreon.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes this lack of thyroid in me just steals words. It's a black hole. It's an abyss.
I hear
Anyway,
you.
you can join our Patreon if you want to get some extra content and support the work that we're doing.
Yes.
And yeah, and then definitely come follow us on Facebook too, True
Mhm.
Crime Paranormal. So thanks you guys so much for being here. And again, we'll be back Wednesday night with a live. So join us there. You have been listening to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Take care.
Bye, guys.